What is the ancient tale of the Titanous Gojira known as Dagon, and why is he a cautionary tale and the last of the Gojira species besides Godzilla? While Godzilla may be the last of the Gojira, he was far from the only member of the species to roam the ancient Earth. So today, fellow heralds of the Titans, let's talk about the Gojira known as Dagon. Much of this information will be coming from the 2019 comic run known as Godzilla Aftershock, but he has made a brief appearance in the MonsterVerse films as well that we'll be diving into. In the year 1999, a team of miners in the Philippines uncovered a radiation pocket deep within the Earth's crust and believed that they had discovered a valuable uranium deposit. When they burrowed into these caverns, however, they came face to face with a massive, decomposing skeleton, and this is our first introduction into the Goliath known as Dagon. After this discovery, Dr. Serizawa is dispatched to investigate this new creature, and at first, his skeleton is actually mistaken for that of Godzilla. But Dr. Serizawa says that these remains are far too old to be Godzilla's, and it is at this time that we meet the Titan known as Dagon. As of now, Godzilla is regarded as the protector of the Earth, not necessarily humanity being rather indifferent to their survival, but according to legend, Dagon seems to have been much more benevolent and was a kinder Godzilla. In the MonsterVerse, this is actually the origin of the Mesopotamian and the Canaanite deity of the same name, and Dagon is believed to be the story behind Raijin, the Japanese lightning god. In the distant past, these ancient peoples worshipped Dagon as a god of the seas and the protectors of civilization, and these stories eventually grew into the myths and legends that took hold of the cornerstone of these respective civilizations. He did not have any records of conflicts with humanity, unlike Godzilla, which lends evidence to the idea that he was much more peaceful towards humans, but that he did have documented clashes with other titans. Based on how he looks, Dagon is very similar to Godzilla in terms of design and appearance, only with a few minor cosmetic alterations. Dagon's power set is also on par with his cousin Godzilla at that time, but it's important to remember that the Gojira back in the day were nowhere near as powerful as the king of the monsters is now, being only a fraction of Godzilla's true power. Modern day Godzilla has been absorbing radiation for eons, both from natural sources as well as man-made causes. Godzilla has had several atomic bombs dropped on him throughout the middle of the 20th century, and has only grown in power because of them. For these reasons, present-day Godzilla is not an accurate metric of when evaluating the power of Dagon and the past Gojira. Dagon was not as powerful as the Godzilla that we know today, but at the time, neither was Godzilla himself or any other Gojira that we know of. Right now, we don't see any evidence that Dagon had an atomic breath ability, and none of his appearances thus far demonstrate that he had this power, leaving us to wonder if this is a new development specifically from Godzilla in the recent years, or if Dagon simply didn't have the opportunity to absorb enough energy that Godzilla did. Based on the mural from the official Godzilla vs. Kong concept art, we can see another Gojira who seems to be breathing fire. This is likely a depiction of the atomic breath. This lets us know that Gojiras of the ancient past did have some ability to use atomic breath in some capacity. For more information on this particular Gojira, however, be sure to check out our video on the Zos Lahawa, otherwise known as the Gojira who might end up being the MonsterVerse adaptation of Space Godzilla. But moving back onto Dagon, when asked about this power, Aftershock writer Avid Nelson replied, "I don't see why not." But the author also warns fans that he doesn't have complete control over what is MonsterVerse canon, so to take this quote with a grain of salt, and the development of the atomic breath is still somewhat of a mystery. It is possible that Dagon did manifest this ability, but that he just never absorbed enough energy to actually develop this skill. But until we know more about Dagon, we simply don't know if he can use atomic breath. While he was not hostile towards humans, perhaps his most notorious and tragic encounter was with that of the Muto Prime, a battle seen by humans that Dagon sought to protect. The creature known as Muto Prime was the distant ancestor of the very same Mutos who clashed with Godzilla in San Francisco. And here, we finally learn of their greater origins. Weakened from his battle, Dagon was infected with the Muto Prime's parasitic larva before being finally defeated by the Muto Prime, with human witnesses recording seeing Dagon retreat into the ocean after being bested by the fellow Titan. Muto Prime, however, lived on and continued to plague the ancient world, while an injured Dagon was never heard from again. The people he protected would never know what happened to him, and it would be centuries before anyone uncovered the full truth of what really happened to Dagon that day, one of the last two Gojira. Infected by the Mutos and dying, Dagon retreated to this cave in the Philippines where he did eventually die, and the eggs feasted on his radioactive remains. They continued to grow in strength, pulling in the energy from his body until they were uncovered near the end of the 20th century. These Muto eggs then grew and ultimately hatched, giving rise to the pair of Mutos that we see in Godzilla 2014, bringing everything full circle. But this is not the last that we would see from Muto Prime. In the same Aftershock comic, we learned that Muto Prime is still alive and is seeking the last remaining creature who can incubate more of its larvae, that being of course Godzilla. After the deaths of its offspring, Muto Prime tries to lure Godzilla into the open, even using guerrilla warfare in order to systematically wear Godzilla down. The Muto Prime strikes quickly and makes equally fast retreats, causing Godzilla to slowly be weakened over the course of many short battles. Muto Prime also specifically evolved to be the perfect rival to the Gojira, including the development of an EMP attack that could dampen or outright neutralize many of Godzilla's radioactive abilities, including even the atomic breath. While this might be why Dagon was never recorded using the atomic breath in his final battle with the Muto, we have no firm evidence to this idea as of now, and based on the evolution of Godzilla's abilities, it seems more likely that Dagon was simply never strong enough or never absorbed enough radiation to start using the atomic breath. Moving back onto the comic, with the help of Emma Russell, Godzilla was ultimately able to subdue and kill Muto Prime before it could implant its eggs in the final Gojira, finally putting an end to the plague of the Muto Prime. Dagon, however, would remain a lifelong casualty of this battle, and a cautionary tale for exactly what the Mutos were capable of. A Muto never had to kill a Gojira, or so they never had to grow strong enough to outright defeat a full-sized Titan. All the Muto had to do was weaken it enough to implant their larvae, which would do the rest of the job for them. And this made the Mutos utterly terrifying when pitted against the ancient Gojira. As of now, all the enemies we've seen Godzilla face have exactly one win condition, which is to achieve the death of the final Gojira. But the Mutos didn't have this concern, and Dagon is a warning to all Gojira of this exact same measure. He wasn't killed by the Muto, but his death was assured by this battle. And in Dagon giving his life, he would always serve as a cautionary tale to demonstrate just how powerful and dangerous the Mutos really were to the Gojira. But anyway, my friends, what do you think of the story of Dagon, the other last surviving member of Godzilla's species? Do you think he was one of the true protectors of humanity? And what do you think would have changed if he had lived and Godzilla had died in his place? Would this Titan's compassion towards humanity have made a difference? And what do you think of his final showdown with the Muto Prime? If you want to stay up to date with everything Marvel as well as Monsterverse related, smash that subscribe button, my friends. And I hope you're having a great day.